play around DPS like this, sorry. San Francisco go Ryan Sigma with the Lucio and the Mei. So you know what they're trying to do straight away, Matt, right? Like they want to use a Mei wall, they want to catch people out and run them down.
They're going to use the Mei wall here to boost up and then TP up to the high ground, potentially. Yep.
Awesome.
They don't even need the Mei wall. There's one where you could do over the, directly over the wall if everyone stands. The Shock could run that one before as Ansel be on the Widowmaker. So a lot of what people wanted in the Countdown Cup finals, right? A Carpe Widowmaker battle, sub in Carpe. Let's see how it goes. We'll get it now.
I love this though. San Francisco. Oh! What? How did he even see that? Super got Rascal killed just because he jumped. That was highly even his fault. I don't know how Carpe finds a shot like that, but he did. And San Francisco now are in a very awkward spot. They have to split up, spread out, and get back to spawn. Ouch!
What's the best with having Carpe in the game is he does stuff like that you rarely see anybody do so consistently. So we have Moth winning a little bit of a Lucio battle here against Funny Astro.
Right, it's traded though, and the Shocker without Fighter right now. So with Batiste in play, Philly have way more durability, way more healing, and Super Shield is down. So is Troikoven. So really hard for the Shock to play on point right now. In fact, they can't at all.
No.
They have to regroup. And Funny Astro, he's Lucio. He's back in the fight already.
Right, like you mentioned, with the Batiste in play, a lot of extra damage. Also Junkrat as well. Maywall goes down, but the Riptire doesn't care for that.
Let it rip! There it is. Super gets caught by that one. He puts his shield up. It's futile though as he sneaks the tire behind it. Sato is down though, and both teams trade out their main tanks. Both teams still have a shield, and an immortality field is pretty crucial right now for Philly if they want to try and weather this storm. It protects them against Arns hitting huge headshots. Funny Astro was able to hunt down the Widowmaker, and now there's numbers on the point for Philly. Troikoven gets dropped down. Fusion, he returned, but there's no teammate. It's him and Moth against the world, and not enough. Philly again saved them off. Again, Moth gets an exit kill. And Alarm is not quite as fast as Funny Astro on returning to the point.
You have sound barrier though for the Philadelphia Fusion. And it's funny, we wanted this one-on-one head-to-head matchup with the Widowmakers. You had Funny Astro who took out Ons in the last fight, then Moth returned the favor, taking out Carpe. So the Lucios getting in the mix, putting a lot of pressure on these Widows. Look for Sato, maybe to drop the Supercharger.
There's the main wall though, and that's when the Shock want to go aggressive, but they're faced with a sound barrier right now. Super trapped inside, Isu's trapped. Now it's going to be a Gravitic Flux here, and is there an Immortality Field? No! Fury and Sato drop down! The Winter Wonderland gets stained with blood, and the Shock find a way through. They spend heavy ultimates to get that point A though, Matt, but they were running out of time.
Yeah, they were. They needed to invest heavy, like you had mentioned. As Carpe now go away from Widow, you'll play Mccree here. The second stage of the map. This tells you that Philly wants to get even more aggressive. They wanna really brawl this out, right? Mccree Junkrat with your double shield plus the Lucio tells you they want to get really close quarter medium range, negate the effects of Ons maybe with some Sigma shields in his face or the Lucio pressure.
All right, Isu. Gonna let it go again. All Super. Okay, he's able to get away.
They trapped somebody, yeah.
Yeah, I think Super was forced to stand up there. Maybe he was halted up there, but who knows. Anyway, he's a Riptire. Okay, nice. Super catches that one with a Fire Strike. That could have been nasty. And now look at the Shock push forward. That Shatter is good. Super gets 3. Fury and Alarm, maybe even 4 in fact. Try and pick themselves back up. But San Francisco, they fight off the Riptire, and then they go up a gear. Philly weren't ready for that change of pace.
Yeah, and Shock do a nice job keeping Super alive. When he's up on the high ground, he's trapped, and that allows the Shock to actually make this a one-fight stage. Last long enough. We can take a look here at the Shatter that comes down. It's a Fire Strike that hits Isu's tire, then just, huge Shatter around the corner.
Man, I mean, very cathartic.
Super lives for those. Super lives for those Shatters. That's like what do they call them? Like the bumper shatter, just to jump around the corner and just insta-shatter without even seeing around it?
I mean, you do that against Arista because he just doesn't have time to put up another shield, and Sigma's shield normally doesn't touch the ground unless he angles it down, right? His viewing angle means that you can normally sneak a shatter under it unless it's like that. So, nicely done. Super now, getting caught out by the Holt accretion combo by the looks of things. Sato Carpe here to clean up. We got the Mccree for Philly. So much has happened just as we were discussing how that fight went. And San Francisco breezed through this second part of the map after a slow start.
Yeah, you had Ons on Symmetra for a quick minute. Now going over to the Widow here. Let's see if he can find any type of sight lines. Funny Ashe has got to be real careful.
Yeah, I mean, too much of that overzealous jumping is going to catch you out against, Widowmaker players of this caliber. Any wasted movements could be devastating. Now, what are the Shock waiting for here, Matt?
Well, this is actually really good for the Shock, forcing this type of position, because this is opening up so much space for the Widow.
Carpe's a psycho. Yeah, absolute monster. Just rolls forward, flashbang into the mass of players, and an immortality field dropped there by Alarm means that Philly get to play that kind of happy-go-lucky style. Arnstein gets his head plucked right off, and Philly now get to re-establish that forward hole.
The Shock know that if they put pressure on the Carpe, there's no answer for Ans, and then he can just free fire on the Widow at range. So just speed boost and trying to get into Carpe's face is the play there. Now they bring it on Ashe, so this will be a little bit better damage output.
Gravitic Flux, Sato's going to fortify and drop to the ground. Carpe was protected though. He was able to step back out of that Gravitic Flux and then get a Deadeye off on Moth, which is big through that amplification matrix. It doesn't take long for the happy little skulls to appear there, I'll tell you what. And now, a minute 53 left on the clock. Philly still have plenty to work with. If they can sneak Hisu in here for a sizable EMP, whatever accompanies the supercharger from Philly will be devastating. And this is a pretty easy setup. Hisu might not even have to EMP. Rascal's hacked and dropped to the ground.
Yeah, and Super ends up using a Shatter here as well, and Moth cannot invest the sound barrier because he knows that this EMP is on the other side. So what do? I mean, the Gravitic Flux comes down. You don't want to beat it because then you're just going to use the EMP. It's going to go away. So just the presence of Hisu on the Sombra, changing the game here.
Carpe causing a whole lot of problems, and where he is set up here on the side, he can keep putting pressure down. They started to lose that supercharger early, and Matrix just forces Philadelphia back. And Troyobin looks like he got caught there by a hold. Carpe in a great spot though to punish. Now this is where things go wrong for him. The fact that he gets to kill an Arnstein before he goes down is just huge. He's done more than his job. He gets a 2-for-1 trade playing from that position, and he spawns closer. That's absolutely worth it for Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's going to be a blizzard here used by Rascal as there's only 40 seconds on the clock, and the Shock need to get something going. This will be the sound barrier from Funny Ashe, keep everybody alive and in the fight, as Philadelphia, they don't want to give up this position right here.
Hisu could drop in here and cause all sorts of problems for San Francisco right now. Okay, I think he got spotted out by Arts on that high ground. Rascal goes down to Carpe though, so not a great start. Moth wants to try and pressure here, but Carpe has so much protection and peel close by that it's very hard to try and 1v1 him right now. Here's the EMP. That is massive. Sound barrier comes out after though, so good work by Moth. He knew there'd be an EMP coming, saves the barrier, but without super, it doesn't matter. Even though he was clever with his ultimate usage there, San Francisco need their main tank, and they need them badly. Carpe walks into a Gravitic Flux here, goes super aggressive, finds 2, and is eventually punished, but he's done his job. He knows he's done good work.
Yeah, it still doesn't feel good, though, for the Shock when the EMP comes through. Now, the sound barrier does come down, and it's good, but they had to use an Amp Matrix and sound barrier just to get it out. Ons finally with a Bob at the end, where Philadelphia, they come alive at the end on King's Row. Good point A defense. The Shock, they mount a really good offense from A to B, but the Fusion with a strong defensive stand. Carpe with the big switch over to the Mccree. The Shock really didn't have an answer for that.
And he's playing incredibly aggressive for a Mccree player, right? Quite often, you don't have a lot of self-peel outside of the flashbang, but Carpe was playing off angles. Sometimes you'd expect to see Sigma players play where Carpe is right now, because Sigma has his own self-shielding mechanic, has kinetic grasp, has a stun. But Carpe's playing there, and sure, he's dying, Matt, but he's getting 2 kills every time. It's a 2-for-1 trade for him.
But I think this may be the next evolution of this Philadelphia Fusion roster, is when you need some more flexibility between your damage dealers, maybe you run Hisu and Ivy, right? They can kind of cover a lot of different bases, a lot like how on Control. It's very difficult for the Shock to game plan against that because they can come out and play anything, right, with those 2 in the game. When you go to a map like this, and you know you need your best hit scan player for an extended period of time, right? Pretty much the entire map, you're going to play some version of Widow, Ashe, Mccree. This is where you bring in Carpe. And I think when you allow Carpe to play in this type of niche and tell him, hey, go out there, click heads, play the hit scan, you'll see performances like this.
I mean, and Hisu just seems to be the player that does it all, right? He comes in now and he just fills whatever gap he needs to. In fact, there are no gaps when he's around. Sombra this time.
I wonder if we see them switch off of Ashe once they realize Widow is on the other side. They may have expected the Ashe for the shock on defense, just because it's a little bit safer, a little bit more consistent. The shock probably come out with Widow because they think the fusion are going to run it, where you want to counter Widow versus Widow.
I mean, Philly aren't using any shields, so Ashe versus Widow looks much worse. I mean, Ashe for shield pressure and Dynamite, you know, getting that behind or through shields, much better. Hisu, sees 3 players on the high ground, so opts to get out. And now we see how Philly force the shock down onto the point, or if they can even do that. That's kind of where they want to fight to set Carpe up for the best vantage point possible. Shokoben's not to the low ground now, so the rest of the shock might have to just group up around him.
That was a really nice setup there by Philly. They're not able to capitalize. So when Fury gets to the high ground, they knock Choiyoben off, and Hisu's waiting on the backside of the point. They actually hack Choi down on the point. There's just not enough to finish him off.
I mean, that poison mine is getting so much value for Rans there. Again, Hisu is sort of revealed and has to get out early, so that Sombra's not getting as much value as he'd like. Sato goes deep. Okay, he gets nano boosted in midair, otherwise that charge looked nothing but suicidal. Now he can sort of rotate here and catch Arns before he can get away, and with the nano boost, Arns clearly used his grappling hook to get into that position so there was no escape.
Just so much patience there from the fusion. A lot like how we saw from the Gladiators playing around the nano boost. This will be a Transcendence used by Violet, and it's pretty much forced out to keep them alive on the point.
I mean, Sato's so elegant, by the way, able to stay alive by playing so aggressive against a team that features sort of Sigma and, you know, Zenyatta and Junkrat, things that just Winston hates to dive into. Oh, he goes and finds Answer again, expertly picking out or identifying an opportunity to eliminate that key player, and Rascal's asleep on the job here. He gets hacked immediately, so it doesn't have remote mine here to open up the distance between him and Hisu, but he's still able to walk away. The Shock are taking a beating right now, but they're still weathering the storm. They're playing inside close quarters, and Sato respects them enough not to just run in here with Primal Rage. And that gives Rascal time for this Riptide match.
Yeah, he's going to be able to take Alarm out in the back. Sato's still alive, though. It'll be a Bob use from Carpe onto the point. On's over to Mccree now. That'll be the second tick. On's with 2.
Okay, Trikoben can sit behind that shield for quite some time as Sato tries to move out and help Bobby. He gets cut down. Sigma is so hard to shift, especially when his opponents are down to, what, 2 or 3 players. Bob and Sato were not enough to cross the gap, and Philadelphia are starting to run out of time in much the same way San Francisco did. All they need to do, Matt, is to pretty much finish the map, but they need to make this EMP work, but the Shock split so much on this defense.
I was going to say, this next fight should be pretty good for Philly, though. EMP plus self-destruct.
Flux will catch. Okay, decent catch. Gets the Mercy and Ana. No other follow-up, though, so no chance to get him down to half health. But Trikoben just walks in there and takes care of Funny Astros. No resurrect for tempo. Can't bring Fury back into the mix and get him resuited. This has to be a full reset for Philadelphia.
Yeah, and that EMP doesn't get a thing. So now if you're Philly, what do you want to run here as Ons takes off Alarm's head? This will get rest heroics. You're gonna run Mccree here. You're getting outranged so bad that this they need to make a play for Ons if they're gonna get value out of Mccree.
Carpe and Funny Astro. It will be a damage boosted Mccree. Tough to play, risky positioning here as Carpe now, because he doesn't really know where the Junkrat is set up. So he'll play at medium to long range, which makes him very vulnerable to someone like Arns, who is on the prowl. Okay, Philly, move to Arns again to get rid of him. Perfect stuff from Sato. Again, he eliminates the enemy Widowmaker. He has been a standout in this series so far. And he has a primal range for later. He'll hang on to it, doesn't get a chance to use it, gets accretion in midair, and Rascal comes back, finds 2 quick kills. Philly are able to take him down. Moth and Choiyoben play close on the point. The Violet is just behind the shield. They get rid of Fury, and having a Batiste here is so huge. Somehow Hisu picks Violet off, then gets rid of Moth. Choiyoben had his support taken out from under his nose, and now Sato returns to the fight with a primal rage, and Hisu fought just enough time for Philly to stay in the game. They get point A, and Philly get to move the cart.
What a play from Hisu, able to get 2, stay alive long enough, battle it out with Choi, and then Sato from the spawn with the primal rage gets back. They knock Choi off, as now Philly gets a chance to move the card. As Sato goes over to Orisa, Fury on Sigma, so you kind of have to match at this moment of the game. But the Shock have a huge advantage in terms of time and ults.
Choiyoben would like to play as far forward as he can, but it seems as if this is as far as the Shock feel comfortable going, playing around this corner. Choi acting as the off-angle Sigma, but Carpe sees the trap, flashes Choi, but still extremely safe.
Huge EMP.
All right, but it's going to be an immortality field here, so it doesn't look like Philly are really in position to follow up on it. Mid-air hack on Choi is very classy, but it doesn't achieve much in terms of Philly's overall game plan, and they start to run out of gas. Matt, what happened there? This setup looks so good.
You had a 6-player EMP, and then Hisu gets another hack on a Choi to deny a Gravitic Flux. You've got to be able to capitalize on that a little bit. I mean, maybe their idea of capitalizing on that is they used EMP, and the other team ended up using Tire and Supercharger. But still, having Gravitic Flux in this fight, it's going to be huge for the Shock.
Fury to move up here. Carpe with a Deadeye. I don't know really what he gets with this one, though. Arns went for one of his own with the Gravitic Flux. It was the better combination that San Francisco were able to leverage here. Now, Arns gets cleanup duty. Flashed around and kill the corner. Fury didn't know what hit him. Philadelphia staved off once more. Now, bear in mind, it took them so long to get point A that they are not working with a lot of time here on point B. Carpe, I don't know what he was dead-eyeing there. I wonder why he doesn't save that to maybe combo with Fury's Flux or even Alarm's amplification matrix.
He's trying to deny potentially the Deadeye and some damage coming down with the Shock. Make them a little bit scared to kind of come out and peek, put some damage out on the players up in the sky. This will be Hisu to get the touch, trigger OT.
All of the Shock are playing together now. They need to get value out of Sato on Orisa. Out of Super on Orisa. Carpe down early, though. That's not good. And Matrix into what looked like a couple of grenades from Rascal, and that gets rid of the key damage dealer for Philadelphia. They've got no choice but to plod along anyway, but they're dealing with the Shock on the high and the low ground simultaneously. The Sigma of Choi is a thorn in the side, but they get rid of Rascal before the Immortality field can be used effectively. Now the Gravitic Flux. Fury's got 2 caught in that one. The increasing to follow it up. Multi-Violet's so low. If Fury wants to push even further, Immortality field used there for the fusion. They know they need to keep going and keep applying pressure. Lock goes down, and there's going to be a sound barrier here for the fusion if they need it. Somehow, against the odds, without Carpe, they find a way to break through, and they get themselves set a chance at winning the map.
And so much after the Countdown Cup was said, is this Philly team clutch enough in those big moments to win some of those fights that you need to absolutely turn in your favor if you're going to be a championship team? We've seen them do it twice now. This will be Supercharger for Sato as they're trying to win it here. This will get you space around the corner. EMP gonna come in for Hisu? No, they save it. They save it here.
All right, and it was a sound barrier on the Shock as well. I get the temptation would definitely have been there. But the Shock had already got a decent amount of value out of that ultimate from Violet. Violet, by the way, on Lucio.
Yeah.
You'd love to see it, man. These guys can do anything. San Francisco, I mean, they are sitting on a bunch of key ultimates here, Matt. By the numbers, you think if they can ration these effectively, they can hold.
EMP plus beat here. This will be the beat for the fusion, and then the tire doesn't go off.
EMP comes in, it's a huge hit as well. Sound barrier was also there for the fusion, so they're able to at least avoid most of the early killing potential from that Amp Matrix. Now they go for Supercharger. So they combine both of their damage boosting ultimates. Have the Shock made a key mistake here? They walked right into this one, and now Carpe wants to push ahead. Strike over, caught out on the right-hand side. Gravitic Flux on 3, and Carpe picks him off. It's Clay Pigeon shooting, and the Philadelphia Fusion, they have like 2 ultimates, maybe 3 against 5 from San Francisco. Gigantic EMP from Hisu, and now they're on the road. It's overtime. If they leave the car for any reason, this round is over, but they have a chance to win. Holt comes out. Deadeye is there. It's Supercard touch. Are you kidding me? What was this?
What a comeback from the Fusion. As you see Super's face just absolutely stunned. pretty big on the defensive side on Kings Row, on the Mccree. On their offensive attack, I think it was really about like Hisu and Sato and Fury. But now this gives you a Widowmaker who can go toe-to-toe with Ons.
Carpe would love nothing more than to try and find a way to sneak one over Ants, but in order to do so, he needs to be probably pretty creative with his angle selection. Maybe you know, like a grappling hook shot, but everyone's safe behind Smurf's shield right now.
Winston Ball on offense.
Okay, that's pretty dive. Yeah, wow, and the Fury at the park over there, that's odd.
Well, it kind of brings you to the ground a little bit faster.
Right, so he's trying to break maybe even the hold or something like that. Yeah, okay, doesn't work out.
So, like, maybe what we see here, Violet takes a 1v1 against Hisu, takes him out, but Fury trying to get to the point, force people down, then maybe kind of either knock people off the bridge into the fusion or set up a big dive with, like, a pile driver from behind into a Winston jump.
Carpe still looking for that opportunity. Rascal finds Sato there without a halt, so it looks like just damage-boosted Junkrat mines. Claim the Winston.
He could have been trying to get Alarm kind of charged up, maybe stayed for a little bit too long.
I mean, Alarm wants to build this nano as fast as possible. Not quite as quickly as we saw Shaz do it in that previous series, but there are a couple other factors to consider there. Oh my.
That's a pick.
Oh, that's... Okay, that has to be an instant resurrect here. Is that safe for Moth to go there, though? It looks like somewhat safe. Surprised that it's not repeat by Carpe. I guess he must have dropped down after taking the shot. Immortality field for Rascal. He needs to make the most of this opportunity now. Get those mines in. Remote mine to get away. I like that. It looks like Choi Urban's sleeping right now, and they lose Ans, so this is looking bad for San Francisco, and Carpe keeps edging further and further around behind the shot. He's getting everybody! Moth and Rascal both down to headshots, and this Riptire is aimless. He'll get Carpe, but the rest of Philly have numbers on point A.
This will be the fusion able to take point A once they get in position. We saw it on the overhead map. You had Fury, Hisu, and Funny Astro get behind. And as soon as Carpe gets a pick, then everything starts to work out for the fusion. We can take a look. Carpe's POV.
Well, that's a gimme.
Takes out Rascal, and then on the way down. Ooh, that is so clean.
And I think this is the Riptire. You hate to see it. It's like the largest target. Riptire, a lot bigger than a headshot hitbox of a Mercy.
Walls here, plus the ability to like get an EMP out of this could be really big for Philadelphia.
Well, it just means it's harder to take Hisu by surprise as he gets into the backline. If there's a peek here, Carpe will find it. Nice angle. I don't think Violet knows he's here yet. He's just being very patient. Okay, gets a body shot. Now the cat's out of the bag, and you'll see that 3 players from San Francisco just stand behind that pillar. Can Philly do anything with that advantage? Not really, losing Sato here to a halt, and Carpe finds a pick, but it's traded instantly.
Yeah, it looks like Rascal got right in his face and took him out. And they kind of need to do that because you saw the position that Carpe forced on that Widowmaker. Now the switch over to Mccree, but you stay on the Widow, and they would have been forced into those sightlines pretty much the entire time. Now you bring in Mccree, kind of go close quarters here, is trying to deal with Ons in the mid-range.
Nano up for Alarm here. Hisu waiting for his opportunity to strike. And it looks like he really wants to make sure he catches Trickyoban in this EMP if possible. Okay, so he goes for an airborne one, and that's pretty good. 3 players caught. Trickyoban was the first target, and he's dispatched. Rascal and Violet were also hacked, and those 2 abscond very quickly. They'll need to return to the fray now, as Philly need a couple more kills here. This is not really the pace that they're going to be capturing this point with properly. They go 1 by 1, this time looking for Smurf, who's hit with a fat bionic grenade from Alarm. Easy kill on that Orisa there. And now Carpe can start to step forward here. Start to find some of these heads, but again, there need to be more of these kills from Philly. If they slow down like this, they're not going to cap.
But are you okay with this with the fusion? They're going to have the Shock invest a few ultimates.
I mean, you did
into
too,
the
right?
fight. Yes, but potentially we see changes coming in. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like Sato and Fury decide to switch on the tanks and go like a Risa Sigma, try and push towards the left-hand side. Rascal now goes to Sombra, and Philly decides to stay on this.
So then this looks maybe a little bit less good from Philly, the way that fight went. I mean, look, it's elementary. If the defenders spawn as close as they do, like, you can't just get 1 kill and then obviously mill around looking for your next opportunity. They need to come together. They need to be, both sides of the Philadelphia pincer need to strike. So self-destruct here, this will force position. That's why Moth and Arns will just stay in the side room now. Does this allow Philly to catch a shock player off guard? Arns quickly 180. Oh my. Sato. I mean, Arns was actually looking at the Sombra Hisu at the time, but he'll take the kill. Immortality field now deployed, so Arns gets to play a little bit more aggressively for now. Forced back, and that's a gigantic bite. A grenade to set up the kill for Carpe. He's going to be looking for more now. So Hoban goes down. Carpe hoped to be shown in that side room, but now he needs to do with Smurf. They're going to nano him. The Electric Cowboy makes his return, and Moth had no chance to get away before the Deadeye was at full potency, at least enough to get rid of the Lucio. 2 ticks for Philly. They're brawling on the point, and they're trying to get value out of this. Mccree. Carpe prevents a touch from Shoyobin, and it will be about 90 seconds, give or take, for Philly after finishing the map.
And it's so interesting with the way that Philadelphia's played this series thus far. We didn't see Ansa in the first map on Lijiang Tower. We saw a combination of Striker and Rascal. But since we've seen Ans come in, Philadelphia has done a really nice job of putting pressure on him, whether it's Carpe on the Widow, Carpe on Ashe to mirror, or Sato getting in his face with like the Winston, which is something that the Shock, it's not like they can't deal with it, but they're usually the team that's setting the tempo and the pace of the game and forcing you to react to them. It's a little bit different now when they're putting so much pressure onto Ans, and you're kind of forced to react. And Carpe gets a pick on the Widowmaker, then you have to scramble around a bit. It's usually always in that regard kind of going in San Francisco's favor, where it's really interesting looking at this series and seeing what you can do, make them look a little bit more vulnerable if you are the team that can find these holes and put the pressure on.
That's what Philadelphia have been going for here, Matt. How do they? Okay, so now they're going to try and play this classic Philly dive defense setup.
Yeah. I was going to say it's easier said than done because Philly is one of the only teams, I think, in the league, regardless of region, that has a roster that could potentially give the Shock like trouble like this, right? They're going to get aggressive yet again on defense. Funny Astro will be playing the Mercy here, so you'll have the damage boost for Carpe.
And they go deeper, mixed up here with Smurf's Orisa. So, okay, a little bit of a different combination. It gives Choikoban the ability, though, to pressure someone like Carpe or Alarm a little bit effectively. Also chase Funny Astro down. Going up against the Winston Diva comp, it doesn't feel too bad prolonging the lifespan of your Orisa barrier by using a bit of defense matrix here and there. That Mega Health Pack is hacked, so this makes it a little bit hard for Shock to make this a proper staging ground. But they drop to the point, and now Philly are the attackers. The shoes on the other foot, so to speak. They're going to have to make a move soon. 1.5 ticks already here for the Shock.
Yeah, they give up a tick. They're getting very close to giving up another one as Carpe gets a damage boost onto his Dynamite, so you can hear the extra ticks getting very close to a Bob.
Yeah, Carpe really wants a better... Oh my,
that's a big one.
Oh, the Bob! Straight on in here. What can be done? Carpe has to drop down to set this up. Is it worth the risk? A lot of people hacked inside the small room, but Immortality Field works well inside enclosed spaces, and most of the Shock benefit from that. Now Sato Primal Razor, there's no Immortality Field left! And the rest of the Shock are a red smudge on the walls as Sato dives straight on in and doesn't even have to use Primal. Philly play patient, Matt. They give a tick or so to the Shock. Can they keep doing this? I mean, at what point do they have to sort of commit earlier as their margin of error runs out?
So they can. With the tanks that they have, real mobility between the Winston and the Diva, they can keep cycling on the point. And if the Shock are going to try and bunker up by the health pack underneath them, you can have the Winston jump down, juggle for a bit, the defense matrix up from above, then the Diva rotate in. See, though, Rascal getting closer towards an EMP. It'll be Hisu with an EMP online first.
They may just go airborne for this one.
I don't know if he
try and go. Choice already de-suited, maybe not necessary.
Carpe with another Bob.
Gives you a ton of pressure on the point. Hisu maybe just hacks the Smurf. Okay, he actually goes for the EMP here. Maybe seeing how low Sato and Fury go as a frontline trade makes him feel like it's a worthwhile investment. In fairness, Bob and EMP to win a fight, I think you take that any day of the week as Philly. 2 ults for a fight is a good going rate.
Do they know that these 3 players are still here for the fusion? They're just going to kind of let them... Maybe they thought they speed boosted out, but
they know
now they know, yeah.
Oh! Okay, it's a trade. I wonder if that's worthwhile for Hisu. He doesn't have EMP.
Probably. I mean, no Amp Matrix, no Immortality here.
The Shock want to commit, though. Oh, there are a lot of ultimates being thrown in here, so they only have the healing right now of Moth. That's all they're working with. But it looks like the Fusion are reeling right now after losing that first player. Still, they can't keep Arms alive as a result. Alarm going to drop onto the point now, and he's most of the healing for the Fusion, but he's got caught in some sort of 1v2 scenario. Some nightmare manifest here as Alarm's probably one of the only players you know who wants to take those. And the trade out doesn't work for Philly.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't work out in the end, but it is some really nice plays from the Shock that end up resulting in them taking the point. I think you would take that trade. It's just that there's a sound barrier available for the San Francisco Shock. They push on forward. They have an EMP of their own that they use there, and they pretty much forced to use all that with the Batiste healing out of the way. This is going to be a primal rage.
That biotic grenade connection was absurd from Alarm. Despite the fact that there was an Orisa shield in play, he just gets it right. Sato's able to dive in there as well. Of course, so many problems. He was the initiator, and it's ult percent for everybody right now as Smurf and the Shock get farmed on the backside of that fight.
Yeah, Sisu works his way up towards another EMP. That'll be kind of like the biggest test here. It's coming up soon. You'll have EMPs for both teams going into the point. Moth not close to another sound barrier though. So not close to a Valkyrie either. Not an Anubis. So it'll be interesting how Philly does this. They probably have to spread apart. You could have Bob come in and like contest the point. Carpe doesn't get hit with an EMP. This will be Sato hacked. Still wants to push forward though.
Well, he knows he can hang, and by the time he's probably ready to get out, yeah, he'll have the ability available again as the EMP ticks out. And Carpe, huge Dynamite Bob combo there.
Yeah, Bob plus Dynamite locks everybody in there. And I believe Violet doesn't even make it with the team. Like, there's that Immortality field, but you can see him a little bit further away, gets cut off by the Mega Health Pack to the left. So we're not even at full force there for the Shock. But this is something you usually see the Shock do to other teams, right? Get aggressive, meet them at the choke, like force things out early. As Philly is kind of taking a page from San Francisco's own book.
And they look so well drilled playing these setups, man. I mean, not many teams feel more comfortable playing the riskier defense, but that's Philly. That's what they love to do. And that is a gargantuan EMP onto 5 people by Hisu. With Violet losing that Immortality field now, fight's still going. Hisu's able to get out, and that's an EMP in response, only catching Fury. So Sato gets a nano boost. He could do a lot with this now. Chasing Violet down. Ton of healing now missing. It's just Moth with the Shock, and that sound barrier looks a little bit less pleasant when it's only on about 4 players.
Yeah, both EMPs a little bit lackluster, but at least San Francisco able to follow up the few kills out of Rascals, but respawns come in for the Philly Fusion. Smurf on the point, still not even a tick for the San Francisco Shock.
Sato's still alive!
That'll be a T-Mac. Sato is just unbelievable. Side to side, the Primal Rage. His Primal Rage felt like it lasted twice as long as it normally does.
I don't know how he got away with that. I have no idea how he got away with that play. You saw, I mean, Arms beelining for him, and somehow he got flashed, I think, was stayed alive with 20 HP. Funny Astro comes in, heals him up, and then there's a defense matrix from Fury. Philly, they're a well-oiled machine, man. You know, they're more than the sum of their parts right now. San Francisco need to find a way to break that synergy, to punish Sato for these dives, but now they're running into another bomb, another EMP, a self-destruct. It looks dire for San Francisco.
Yeah, and the Shock are going to get aggressive in their own right. They're going to put Smurf on the Winston here late game, and also Violet's going to go over to the Moira.
It's time. Self-destruct to the high ground, doesn't find any targets, but forces Philly to split a little bit. Sato goes down first. That's a big part of the win condition here for San Francisco. But Fury's able to chase Smurf down. He still has a self-destruct and thereby has a mech reset. Getting hacked would have been a problem there. So he goes for the reset, self-destruct, doesn't find any kills. That's 1 tick and counting now. And then he gets back in the mech only to be hacked and punished once more. But outside, he bit off a little bit more than he could chew. To the rescue comes Sato, who turns the favor from the prior fight. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Philadelphia Fusion are blowing my mind right now. Defensive dive, playing risky, ride the lightning to victory in straight maps. 3-0.
And at the end, I believe it's an EMP that comes through, and everybody loses their movement abilities, and they're not able to touch the point, get back on. You see Choi coming back around the corner, not able to do it. A huge win for the Philadelphia Fusion.